Paula Thomas here to give you a quick overview of the new Olympus 60mm macro lens for the Micro Four Thirds system. I just picked this lens up from Glazer's Camera in Seattle for $4.99, so I've had a couple of days to play with it. It does not come with the lens hood, so you'll have to buy that separately, and it doesn't appear to be available in the US yet. I did find it online for 5,500 yen, so that comes out to about $68 US. One thing I noticed right away is the size of the lens. It's almost exactly the same size as the 12 to 50 millimeter, the kit lens. The height is pretty much the same. The macro is just a little bit more narrow, and the weight is pretty much the same. So if you have the kit lens, you can expect that in the size of the macro lens. Now the filter thread size is 46 millimeters. So if you want to use a filter on it, that's the size that you'll need. It also has a focusing distance selection, so you can choose between 0.4 meters to infinity, 0.19 to infinity, and that is the full focal distance range, or 0.19 to 0.4 meters. And it also has a 1-to-1 option, so if you just move this dial to the 1-to-1 position, it bounces back. But if you're in manual focus mode, it'll automatically change the focal distance all the way to 1-to-1 without you having to twist the focusing ring to get where you want to go. So it only takes about less than a second to move from the infinity to the 1-to-1 focusing distance. So I found that to be pretty helpful if you're shooting a macro and want to zoom from one to the other without, twisting the focusing ring. So I put the macro lens on my OMD so I could show you how fast the focusing distance changes can be done. So this 1-to-1 option takes you all the way to 0.19 meters, which is the closest focusing distance. So I'll show you how fast that is. Currently it's in pretty much infinity right now. So if I go up to 1-to-1, so that's the 0.19 to 0.4. Now if I go 1-to-1, that's how fast it goes to that. And then if I go back to 0.4 to infinity, so it takes about a second to get from one end to the other, and that's way faster than using this focusing distance ring. So you'll see how long that takes. Actually, I'm in 0.4 to infinity, so if I go the full focal distance, then I can go all the way. I mean, that takes several seconds to get from one end to the other using the focusing distance ring. So those switches are pretty handy if you want to change really fast the focusing distance. And those are, again, most valuable when you're in manual focus. So if you're using autofocus, you can still use these other three options, but the 1-to-1 won't really serve you any purpose, because as soon as you push autofocus and the shutter, it's going to change. It's not going to stay at 1-to-1, it's going to change to a different, whatever your focusing range is to the subject. I'm just going to toss a couple things out here so I could show you how fast the autofocusing is on the lens. And I'm going to use the 0.19 meters to infinity option, so that gives me the full focal distance range. And it is pretty fast. And one thing I did notice when I was playing around with it is in low light it's not so good. But if you have a lot of light, it works pretty fast. Maybe not as fast as some of the other lenses, but it is pretty good. So I have a fish tank back there, and I'll show you how hard it is to focus on it. So it did kind of go in and out a little bit because it's not very bright back there. I am at f2.8 and using auto ISO, so it may look bright back there, but it's not that bright. So I have my kitchen stuff back there, so it hunts around a little bit, but it's not too bad. But if you want to use low light, I would suggest using a LED light or light panel or something like that, or at least use manual focus. If you have any questions about the lens, feel free to leave me a note. Thanks for watching.